Utah wanted the Pac-12 money and fame, and along with that, they get a Pac-12 schedule. Mark Rogers TV as we continue to go through every Power 5 conference schedule in 2014, and we're now all the way out to the West Coast and the Pac-12. Utah may play one of the toughest schedules in the country. I don't think there's any question about that. Is there a tougher schedule in college football than what the Utes have to face this fall starting next week? Okay, let's lop off the first game and the last game. It's Idaho, it's Colorado, and then in between there are no softies on the schedule. First of all, again, after the win, hopefully it should be the win, has to be the win over Idaho, Utah will take on Fresno State at home. Then they go to Michigan. And I know Michigan is not Michigan right now, or probably won't be this season, starting the season outside the top 25. But it's Michigan talent. They have recruited in the top 10 with Brady Hoke there. And it's still a very formidable football team that should go 9-3 this season. Michigan is one of the 25 best football teams in America. They should be this season. I know that they're not starting out in the top 25, but they're a top 25 football team. So that's Utah's third game. After playing Fresno State, of course, Derek Carr gone, Devontae Adams gone. Fresno State coming back strong in other areas, including Deron Smith, one of the best safeties in the nation. So Utah wants to be 2-1. They want to be 3-0. They could be 3-0 after 3 games, but I would expect them to be 2-1 with the loss at Michigan. They can win at Michigan. They almost pulled one off against Rich Rod team. I think the final was like 25-23 back in 2008 or 9. Idaho, Fresno State, and Michigan, that's out of conference. Then the Utes dive into the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is probably the second best conference in college football. There are some people out there that think the Pac-12 is deeper than the SEC. And this may be fodder for the discussion right here. Utah's next 8 games, or rather their next 8 games, because again, the finale at Colorado should be the cakewalk. Otherwise, Washington State, who went to a bowl game last season, at UCLA, the chic pick to go to the college football playoffs this season, at Oregon State, always a tough team, a team that finished on the fringe of the top 25 again last season. USC at home, then at Arizona State, who won the Pac-12 South last season, boasted one of the top defenses in college football before somehow falling apart against Texas Tech in a bowl game. Oregon, that was really the Utes' only blowout last season. They lost by 19 to 3 to USC, and then they were blown out by the Ducks, as most are, 44-21. Other than that, despite Utah's 5-7 record and really underachieving last season, they played down to the fourth quarter against everybody and beat Stanford. Speaking of which, back-to-back against Oregon and Stanford, and then the Arizona game before, again, Colorado. So again, consecutively take off the first game and the last game. It's Fresno State, Michigan, Washington State, UCLA, Oregon State, USC, Arizona State, Oregon, Stanford, Arizona. They play, wow, just within that difficult 10-game stretch. They've got USC, Arizona State, Oregon, and Stanford consecutive weeks, 4 consecutive weeks against, again, legitimate top 25 teams and maybe 2 of the top 10 teams in the country in Stanford and against Oregon. Utah could have a really good football team and still go, they could go 2-7 in the Pac-12. They have to beat Colorado, obviously. They have to defeat Washington State. They have to defeat Arizona. They could go 3-6 very feasibly in the Pac-12. I would expect them to steal one game, possibly against an Oregon State on the road. That would be the next game that you would expect Utah to be competitive in against this schedule. So best case scenario I'm looking at for the Utes is 4-5, could be 2-7, most likely 3 wins in the Pac-12. Out of conference, they should go 2-1. split the games against Fresno State and Michigan, most likely winning at home and losing at the Big House and defeating Idaho. So I'm looking at 5-7 against for Utah. Again, for Utah this season would be 5-7. Would love to hear what you have to say about this Utah schedule, which again, wow, this is rugged. They miss Washington and Cal in the Pac-12, and those are the same two teams that they missed last season. I don't know the schedule rotation exactly in the Pac-12. Of course, all the division teams do appear on the schedule, but Utah does not play Washington. They do not play Cal for a second consecutive season against those two teams. So Washington considered the third best team in the Pac-12 North division, and for Cal, the worst team, one of the worst in Power 5 college football last year at 1-11. Utah, it's going to be tough to get to a bowl game. Please spell it out for me, Utah fans, right here on Mark Rogers TV.